Hello, this is John Speelman with the video version of my latest column for Chess Space, number 211 it is in fact, and it is called 5 abreast. I guess I'll do it from the round out rather than 4 abreast, which is at the end. So, this arises from the last round at Vaikanzai, but which had a very unusual finish, the tournament. And I thought, a fortnight ago, I got some dictation software, Dragon software, for dictation, because my typing is absolutely execrable. And so I thought what I'd do, I felt like a rant anyway, as I often do, and I thought I would have a little rant and see how the software did. Obviously, I've had to correct bits and things, but there we go. So basically, there's a little rant about the word unprecedented. And what I said was that during the pandemic, our glorious politicians, they excused everything by saying that it was unprecedented. I'm praising. And not greatly impressed by them. And, you know, a pandemic was not unprecedented. It's happened throughout recorded history that there have been pandemics, plagues and pandemics, and the politicians, whoever's in charge, have had to deal with it in some way. But by using this single word, unprecedented, they excused themselves from sort of, you know, oh, it's impossible, we didn't know what to do, how could we possibly? And it's just rubbish in my opinion. Anyway, there we are. So I ranted for a bit about unprecedented. And I didn't actually mention my modest proposal, which is public execution, for the use of the word unprecedented in public. Since it's in inverted commas, I don't think I'll have to shoot myself. But we shall see. Anyway, then I talked about the last round of Vaikanzai, which, by the way, this software can't deal with at all at the moment. And I said that, well, there were 5 abreast before the last round and 4 of them won. Now, this does happen in open tournaments, that you have great swathes of people who are first equal. But I don't remember 5 being first equal before the last round in an all-play-all tournament. Maybe there was a Hastings sometime. I mean, there's probably something. I think I'm exaggerating. Anyway, there we are. So what I said was, this was a really exciting last round, and I wanted to revisit it. And what I have done is to ask our Silicon Lords and Masters, and they've suggested some Stockfish it is that I use, has suggested some unbelievable moves. So I'm going to go here now. Let me just check again that I'm recording, avoiding screamings, and there we are. I moved column 211 down to the bottom before I started, so I wasn't faffing around finding it. There are 4 games. Actually, the first one to finish, in fact, was Giri against Varmadam, so maybe we should look at that first. I could have reordered them, but I couldn't be asked, I suppose, really. So apparently Magnus Carlsen has played c4 here, but it's not a great move. But if you stick in the moves knight c3, c5, it's a much better move. Okay. Of course, you can play rook e8 as well, and Giri plays g4. So, okay, this is to attack, and it's to open the g file, and in a must-win game, he thought at least one of them would win. Of course, 4 of them did, and also Wei Yi beat Vidit, because I mean there could only be 4 wins, not 5, because 2 of them were playing. So he really goes for it. And the amazing thing is the line that the software flags up first. I'm not sure if it's its first line or its second line. Let's have a look. See if you can imagine what. Well, I'll give you the first move. d4. No, knight g4. No, d4. Pawn takes pawn. I don't know, you may have seen what comes next. If you didn't, then please have a look and see if you can imagine what our great and glorious masters now suggest is the best move in this position. Because I thought, wow, these engines, sometimes they do things which are truly wonderful. And the move, I'm going to first turn on the engine to see if it will speak to me. Speak to me, O great master. What are you going to suggest? You suggest the move E5. Do you keep on suggesting the move E5? You seem to be for quite a while. Just an extraordinary move. I mean, I suppose it's not at all the white king's in the centre, the pawn's on G4. Why wouldn't you play E5? But it is hard to play such a move when it appears to just be inviting white to fork two pieces. So D5 is actually really bad. Let's go have some moves. Bishop G4, H3 is best apparently, Bishop E2. And actually this apparently ends up about equal after some lot. Oh no, this is line over plus. What was there? There was something which ends up with an equal ending. That's right. If you D5, not very happy after E4, knight G5, bishop E5, which isn't that hard a move, pinning the knight. White's position really not very lovely. Though I'm bishop G4 and back to F5 is more likely from a human being, I would say. But if you thought about it, you might not. You might think bishop E5 is a better move, and apparently you'd be right, according to its sublime majesty. But the best move apparently is dc5, bishop c5, g5, knight h5, knight e4, bishop b6. Now knight e5 at once apparently is a bad move because of bishop d4, which makes some sense. You've got a lot of pressure in the centre. Black's pieces are all over the white's pieces are all over the place. But apparently what you should do, according to its their sublime majesties, is dc5, bishop c5, g5, knight e4, bishop to there, c5 is the best move apparently. Bishop back, then knight e5, and it gives this line. I haven't tried to verify this line particularly hard, but I can believe it. And this is about equal, after all the excitement. Okay, but this is a fantastic idea. He went knight c6, g5, and now knight h5 was better. Apparently, if you take like that, then bishop b8, and black's got pressure. A lot of pressure for a pawn, really. He's got the initiative. This is very much about the initiative, this opening. Whether white can get things done or is going to end up a pawn up with his pieces all over the place. Okay, he went knight e4, queen c2, sorry, h4 first, rook e8, queen c2, and here Varmadam made something of a mistake. He should have played knight b4 here. Apparently, queen b1, b6. This makes sense. Okay, let's believe that. I haven't even looked at knight e4, d4. It says a3. If queen e4, queen d7. Actually, this is playable, isn't it, for black? So this is a line. The thing is, I'm doing it. A3 is a move. Is he going to go knight d3 check or not? He is, yeah. Take, bishop b7. And obviously, you have rather splendid white squares for a pawn. Okay, he went knight c3, and now dc3 is a very clever move, preparing to smash open the diagonal later by playing cd5 and c4 at some stage to get the bishop working, and also putting pressure on the centre and preparing to play bishop d3. g6 was played. It's a reasonable move. Knight e5 is probably a better. Well, knight e5. Is he going to go? He's going to take, and go f4, I assume. Bishop d6, castle's queen side. And obviously white's plan is to smash open the long black diagonal and then to slaughter black. And it's not that clear a position, but it is better though. So, but here he played h5, and the engine really wants to castle long, and the reason for that is because after knight e5, you can play bishop, but if you play knight e5, knight h2 is a really strong move, because suddenly you're viciously and maliciously getting your knight to the squares g4 and f6, and this is not at all nice for black. Very unpleasant. I tried h5. I don't know what other moves. What would it actually try? King f8, it says. That's pretty desperate, isn't it? Queen e7. No, it doesn't want to. I thought you'd go f4 now. Yeah, knight d7, assuming knight c4. Knight g4. And this is h5 it wants to try. Can we now go knight h6? No, we just go takes. We're basically going to blow the guy's brains out, is the idea. And now cd5 it says. Still not attacking the knight in g4. Of course I was hoping we were, but we're not. When I actually engaged my brain for a microsecond. And this is a winning attack of some sort. With the bishop on b2 about to re-enter the fray. So actually h5 was less good, because now if knight h2, I think you probably can play queen g5, at least I assume you can, and that's not so good. So they got to this position. e5's a fine move, actually. Well thought. He's understood that as long as the bishop on b2 remains passive, then he's in the game. And if you go rook d5, you leave the bishop passive for the rest of time, really. So a lot of the rest of time, anyway. So rook d5, queen c7, h6, bishop h8, queen f2 given here. Probably is plus equals, I'm guessing, yeah. Takes, bishop d3, f4, if e4, bishop b2, b5, takes here, takes. b5 wasn't a particularly happy move, but the idea was to go b5, pawn takes pawn, c4 or something. Try to pen in that bishop, but it's not really working. This is pretty awful. c4 is a good move. Yeah, this is a disaster, because there's this rook h7 check trick. So they got to this position anyway after a while, and he doubled his pawns, and he played bishop g6, which is fine. Well, if you don't play bishop g6, you're worse. Varmadam's played really well up to this stage, by the way, really well. By the way, he can't play queen f7. Because of rook h8 check, should say. A very well-known trick. Queen c6, though, was the right move, after which apparently this is just a draw, according to the great engines, which, I mean, you can't tell easily. You wonder, can black do something, say bishop g4, but then what happens if bishop g4? Oh, I'm having a hallucination, aren't I? Rook a8. Sorry, I was assuming that was mate, which is complete bollocks. So let's delete that variation. Sorry. Delete remaining moves. Okay, and I'll save this again. So what happened was he went king f8. The position still, actually, for a number of moves was playable. Basically because the bishop on b2 isn't working. If it were, then the game would be over, presumably. And apparently rook e5 was still sort of playable according to its sublime majesty. No, this actually is already very unpleasant indeed, because finally you've got the glorious bishop working. Bishop f7. Rook f4 was a very strong move. Not an easy move to play, I'd say. But I mean, I suppose he just, by elimination, he worked out what he wanted to play. Queen h2, threatening mate, and then the glorious move, horrible move for black to deal with, rook takes bishop with check. Now if queen takes, there's g6. If king takes, queen h7, of course. G6. You can't take it because of rook g1, and if you don't, then then queen h7 check is happening, and the game is going to end. In fact, it ended like that. Rook d7 check, queen f5. I think also you'd also play. Also, rook d7 check would do if you wanted to. So a really very good game. It's the first of the 4 games to finish. Very big battle. Geary played this move g4 on the opening, really going for it. Varmadam defended really well, actually. Some of his moves, e5 is a very good move, just leaving the d pawn just to get the pieces out. But eventually, in a complete mess, so easy to make mistakes, and he did. And there we are. That's the first one. Then we got the Wei Yi game. This was a very good game as well. So, I mean, you can take and play bishop g4, or you can, you can do things like take bishop g4 or bishop g4. e6 is a little bit wimbly in my opinion, but I mean, okay, it's perfectly playable. You just got a Slav reverse now. And this is called the Collie system when white plays it. Perfectly good at opening. Supposed to be fairly harmless, but I mean, you know, you can play it, of course. I don't know if you should go to there or to e7. Bishop e7, of course, is also possible. Both sides castled, rook e1, and he wants to play e4. Queen c7. If you go e5, e4 is a bit annoying. This line, this is definitely unfortunate. If you take, I don't know if knight f6, if you're going to go rook e5 or not, or just bishop g5 probably. Probably just bishop g5 is quite unpleasant. Do you want to do, you don't want to go rook e5, do you? That's too exciting, just bishop g5. I mean, this is all slightly better for white. Now you can play bishop g5. It's important that f6 just loses to queen b3 check and rook h4. That's more or less the end. Well, it is the end of the game, I think. So you can't do that. Okay, you went queen c7, e4 takes, perfectly reasonable. And now he made what's actually b6 is okay. I mean, the engine wants to go bishop b4 and bishop b7, or bishop b7 at once. This is okay. g5, but now Vidit made a mistake. He needed to play bishop e7, and you've got an IQP position which is a little bit better for white, I suppose, but you know, it can be played by both sides. Black is going to be able to play queen d. Or is he going to have some problem with on h7? Well, if he does, I mean, you're going to be able to play h6 in this position, presumably, unless he goes queen d2, which isn't that threatening. But he took, rook takes, exclam, and suddenly this rook is really dangerous for black. It's already incredibly dangerous, this position. He went bishop b7, and I said I wondered about h6. I was wondering about h6, but you go rook c1 actually. The thing is, if you go bishop takes, sorry, I've got the wrong position, sorry, delete variation. If you go bishop take, oh, blast it, excuse me, I need to undo rook c1. If you go bishop takes, here, 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 I wasn't so sure, but even here, I thought this might not be that clear, but actually rook c1 is still pretty disastrous. And rook c1 first is even better, actually. You can't, of course, you can't take the bishop because of rook g4 check and queen d2. And this is pretty disgusting. Could you play knight f6 here first? Seems unlikely, doesn't it? How are we going to do it? Rook takes c8, says this engine. Rook takes... Have to take with the rook, don't you? I suppose... Rook f6, and you've got some massive attack. I mean, here... Queen b3 check. Is this just landing? This is just landing, isn't it, actually? King h8. Queen there, presumably. Yeah, I mean, there are lines, but they're all good for white. So you can't play h6, which you like to. So he goes bishop b7, rook c1, queen to here, rook to there. And you'd like to do, well, you're too late to play knight f8, even if you wanted to. By the way, if you played, I wondered about playing rook e8 in this position, with the idea that you can go knight f8, but this is pretty grim, because actually bishop h7 check I think is good for white. If you didn't play bishop h7, you'd certainly be better, but this is probably completely murderous. King f8 is the best move. King f8 I just take, I think, actually. Or if I go... f6 is the other one. f6 was f6, then you can just go queen takes this check. With a winning position, presumably. Knight f8. How do we do this? Bishop h6 is given. Okay, if I take here, he takes here. And this is only plus over line, apparently, but if I go bishop h6, it's even better. Okay, thank you, Stockfish. Sorry. So he ended up having to play f5, which is a really miserable move. The long and short of it was after here, he had to play f5, which is really an unpleasant move, bishop c4. Okay, black would like to go bishop d5, but then you take and you go rook c6, which is a particularly unpleasant move, because it leaves black more or less paralysed. The main thing is that if rook c8, you go queen b3. And there are some horrific things that can happen. For instance, there's the horrific move queen e6 in this position. Threatening queen takes knight and winning the house and the garden and all of the appurtenances. Completely winning position. Yeah, okay. And white's got 2 extra pawns and an attack. So there were some other lines as well, but this is very bad. So he went queen e8, queen b3. If bishop f3, queen f3, white, queen g6 would have kept white's advantage within bounds, and yeah, that's probably what he should have done. After king h8, he went rook e1. Of course, he doesn't go bishop e6 because then bishop f3 causes a certain amount of mayhem. If bishop e6, sorry, here, if bishop e6, bishop f3, bishop d7, queen g6 is actually, is this already good for black? Of course it is. Because if queen f3, queen g5, you're hitting 2 rooks, aren't you, which is bad luck. There is the move queen e3 is the only move to stay on the board, apparently. But white's all over the place at this stage. Only move, exclaim. Okay, so what happened was that he went rook e1, of course, bishop e4. Now he took, and he goes bishop d2. And black's got sort of vague chances of getting something. The rook's not great at h4 in some ways, but you are playing knight g5 in a minute. and the knight's on prise on d7 at knight f6. I don't know if bishop b7 was a move. You can go rook f4 apparently. Is that what you do? I would have thought rook h3. Yeah, just go rook h3. That's where I'd go. I certainly wouldn't go to f4. Now he played very well. If h6, he was just going to play bishop f7. Rook takes, king up, check here. Just take the bloody thing. And, you know, I know the rook on h4 is very, very slightly suboptimal. But on the other hand, white is completely winning, of course. So he went f4, and now Wei played something very good. He found a simple way to cement the advantage. He went rook h7 check, knight takes bishop. Don't know if f3 is the right move. Probably not. It's not great, but you know, it's all right. And you look at this position, white's got 2 pawns for the exchange. I thought it was 3 for a moment. Dominant bishop on e6, basically a winning position. Black tried that. They played some moves. Of course not. Queen takes b6, rook takes d5. h4 prepares to move the knight without allowing knight g5. Good move. Knight goes in, rook goes over, queen takes. He just took things and went in, threatening knight f7 check, obviously. I mean, okay. That's a good move. Takes the diagonal. Queen h5 doesn't help. And he resigned because he's either losing his queen or getting mated or both. Very good game also by Wei under a lot of pressure. Of course, he won the playoff. I was very pleased to see that the Blitz playoff was for honour rather than money. I really don't approve of, after 2.5 weeks of intensive classical combat, the idea that you get different amounts of money with the same score because you won or lost a 3-minute game with 2 seconds increment. Okay, the other 2 games I don't know as much about. I'm going to go through them fairly quickly. This is Magsudlu. Magsudlu basically was playing like a total hacker in this tournament. And that's rather wonderful, but it's also a little bit bonks. I would say that's a technical term. Well, possibly not. Is knight g5 possible followed by h4, I wonder? Probably not. What is the engine? What do you have to say, Maestro? So knight to there is just bad, is it? Knight to there. g6, h4. Doesn't really believe it. h6. Okay, doesn't believe it. I thought if I had time to go h5 and start faffing, I might get an attack. Okay, so he went knight e5, and then he went g4, which actually is one of the engine's top moves. I mean, f3 to protect it. The problem with this position, basically, I don't know if you could have gone h3 to protect this, actually. Is that a sensible move? To play f4 afterwards, h3, c5, maybe play like this. Yeah, seems reasonable. And he played knight f7. Well, what I said was, this is a move that in a blitz game you perhaps should play instantly, because it's bound to cause black some trouble. And if you swap knights or something, it's a bit miserable. But in a classical game, you'd think that black could defend against this, and he did. Though, but in fact, Magsudlu got some play. He just looked slightly barking. I mean, it looked like a man who'd had enough of the tournament and wanted to punch his opponent. And so he plays a punch. Even though he's breaking his fist doing it. Excuse me. Okay, and they played some more moves. And actually, he didn't do badly, did he, at all? I don't really know about this. Hitting the rook, of course, rook to there. This was okay. For some reason, queen a5 they think is much better here than is played. He took first and then went there. And I think the thing is that here, Queen b6, Queen f4 check, King e6. And here the engine has a really rather remarkable idea, which is that it should play, want its pawn with check, King d7. If knight takes d5, bishop takes c4 is slap. Okay, this is actually winning, which it looks like it might be. And in this position, it wants the engine another remarkable move, which it sees is the move b3. Just saying, okay, if you play rook takes, I can bishop c4, which is a jolly good thing. And if you play pawn takes, I play king b2, and my king is safe for long enough for me to attack. Well, I mean, I can see that, of course, but I mean, it's not at all obvious to the naked eye. So if take king b2, can you not play knight takes d5 here? Is queen f7 check then? Knight takes d5, presumably queen f7 check. Okay. Thing is, every time I look at the game, I see other things. And this position, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, despite it being, I mean, the position's so mad that you wouldn't know, would you, what was going on? And apparently this is okay for white. Right. What happened was that they played these moves, and here Magsudi played his last mistake. Now he played d6 first, which was okay. I think, or b3 also, and d5. This apparently is pretty bad. Black's king looks safe enough here, doesn't he? Safe enough to survive for a few moves, which is all you need. Bishop a8, don't know if that was a good move actually. It says g5 exclam. I have no idea why g5 exclam. Oh, I suppose that g5 exclam. Presumably preparing Yes, I've started to get used to having my glorious dictation software, but obviously I can't have it on while I'm doing this, or there would be, God knows what would happen, but it would be messy. Right, okay, so bishop a8. Now, should apparently have gone rook ad1, but he went rook h8. And here, Gukesh played very well. He played bishop d5, had to take, have to take the knight. There's no, if you don't, you're lost. Queen e5, king to there. If you play rook d1 check and rook takes b8, then queen b2 is mate, of course. Rook takes rook and c3. And suddenly you've got a murderous attack as black. He tried king e1, rook takes b2, rook to there, check. And now, black, choosing a square is, well, it's easy and it's not. You tend to want not to put your king in the centre, but here king e6 wins at once because the knight controls both of the queen's potential checking squares. So white is completely, utterly and totally bust. Good game by Gukesh, but he was sort of playing goalkeeper quite a lot of the game, with sort of shots coming in as Magsudi threw all his attackers up the pitch and left his own goal unguarded, to use that analogy, metaphor or whatever. Last game, again, I don't know much about this game. So the Najdorf, because the Najdorf isn't forcing, there are many, many different moves you can play as white. I think I've got about 20 which are fairly plausible in my database. I'll show you I do this from time to time. Let's just have reference. Take a moment. There we are. Huge number of moves, and I think that the Queen D3 is number 16. I'm not going to... I did count it. If I click on there, probably... No, I'm going to have to go back now. Oh, no, this is not... Okay. A6, yeah. Here we go. Queen D3 is played 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 16th. Queen E2 is possible, 17, 18, but 18 sensible ones, followed by some very stupid ones. Knight D2 isn't too stupid. King E2 is. King E2 I think is 100% actually. I believe, but you know, presumably this was bullet games or something. Anyway, so the night off, there are lots of different answers. Queen D3 is a very unusual one, and he wanted to make the guy think from the very off. And we got a dragony sort of position, which was perfectly playable for black. Bishop H4, that's a good move. I mean, I thought he'd take an F6, but actually take. You can play Knight E2 followed by C3 when you're equal, but you can do this. But after Queen C2, basically, if anybody's better, it's black. You'd probably take an F6 and double rooks or something. And here white would prefer to have played the move F3 rather than F4 because the E-pawn is a little bit weak. And probably it's, you know, nothing very much for anybody. Okay. He went Bishop H4, they played some more moves. And it turns out that in this position E5 is a really strong move, followed by Knight D5. And the point is that here you have Knight E7. And the engine gives this basically as winning. You have to go Knight F2, which is disgusting. And this obviously is a winning position. Bishop D4 is one good move in this position, clearly. Blowing the guy's brains out. Lots of different ways to blow his brains out. So, they played some moves. I think in this position I'd probably have played Bishop takes F4. I think. Just because the knight in C3 isn't great unless white can get an E5. After Bishop takes, Queen takes, Rook D8. E5 is probably E5 is the critical move. Then Queen F5. And white can't really get the knight into F6. Of course, it's still a big fight. Presumably you go Queen E3 here, actually. And now, let us ask its Majesty what we're going to do. This is still the black king is not great, but it likes H5. Why is H5 such a good move? Rook G5, Queen C2, Knight E4, and then Rook check. Presumably, what's going to happen to Queen C1. Yeah. Knight F6 check, King D8. Okay, it's actually very complicated. He took this one, and what happened was that black won a whole exchange, or exchange for a pawn, in fact a whole exchange, but he had absolutely rotten dark squares and the position was very, very hard to play. And well played, Abdusatorov. He's a great attacking player, isn't he? He was leading, of course, with 2 rounds to go before Vidit beat him, and then it all closed up. They played all these moves. Bishop D2 is an excellent move, actually. It's the only strong move, well, certainly the best move. And you can't go Queen C7 because Queen F6 check, of course. And he managed to get to a winning ending. And here the H pawn is basically winning. And he took the queens off. Now, you mustn't, if you go something like king g3, b5, king here. Black can't queen a pawn, but he just sits there. You just go here, here, and sit. And white can't get in on the queen side. There's no way to break through, and therefore this is just a draw. But so he played a4, king f6, g4. At some point you've got to play b5. It doesn't really matter. Eventually you'll have to. Queen to there, check, good move, stopping the king from getting too active. Yeah, I mean, don't know, is king e6 any better? What do we play? Queen d5 check, king f6. Or maybe this is g5. Oh, are you just not in time? You're not in time, are you? Check. Go to either square, actually, g3. That would do. Okay. So he manages to drive him back and then play g5. Yeah, if you go queen c3 check, you go to the white square, or if you want queen b3 check, I'm sure it doesn't matter, you go to h4. It just makes sense to go to the opposite card square because then he doesn't have another check. And as it was, they played these moves, and here he resigned. By the way, I mean, black could have played queen d4 if he wanted to. But I mean, queen f4 check is mate in 3. Obviously, queen takes queen would have been suboptimal, but this is mate. So, remember Abdus Satorov beat Magnus once with queen in pawn against queen in pawn, so he's good at these things. Right, so 4 very, very fine last round games. Very, very unusual last round. Whether the U word should be deployed, you can please tell me. Please write to me. I think my email appears in the column, but if it doesn't, it's jonathan@jspeelman.co.uk, or you can tell me via the Chess-Based editorial staff. So today is I'm actually doing this on the Thursday, but today is the 4th, so I will be back with you on the 18th with some other magnificent topic and possibly a little less ranting. I'm going to look again as usual. If I'm not recording, I shall scream, but you won't hear me. And you don't hear me scream because I am recording. Cheers then.